First off, I want to start out by saying thanks, Digital Green Tea, for having me on your first ever episode of the interview. It's a great honor and I appreciate it. Wow, so the first game I ever played was a little game on the Atari 2600 called Defender. Now, this game was actually really popular at the time, but when I first played this game, I was so young. I was literally a baby. It was like, picking up the controller, not knowing what you were doing. And I remember it vaguely, like it was something along the lines of, I know on the cartridge first, let me start out by saying, I know on the cartridge of the game, there was a woman like looking back and it was like alien invasion happening. And for some reason, I guess when I was young, I thought that I was playing as a girl pilot in this ship, and the game was something like you was basically a pilot fighting aliens, but at the same time you were trying to help astronauts or something, or fighter pilots basically. And if you didn't like save them and bring them to your safe place, I'm remembering this vaguely. I think the bad guys, basically the aliens, would take them and then convert them into more bad guys, and then they would return. So if you didn't save the people, that was going to be a ship that you was going to have to fight later on. And the game was ridiculously hard, but that was the first game I ever played. And I brought up the fact that I thought I was playing as a female because it was a sci-fi game, my first game as a female. It's funny because in the future I will go on to love a game where it was a sci-fi game based on aliens, which is my favorite sci-fi anything. And I would play as a girl, aka Samus Aran. So yeah, my first game was Defender, not a Nintendo game, surprisingly enough. My favorite gaming series. See, this is a question that gets me all of the time because it's like, all right, the holy trinity for Nintendo fans has always been pretty much Mario, Zelda, and Metroid, and some people switch that up to Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon. But for me, I guess being the more old school kind of guy, it was always Mario, Zelda, and Metroid. It was out of those three. But the honest answer is, for me, always, as much as I love Link and the universe of Zelda, and I love fairy tale stuff like that, Lord of the Rings, favorite movies of all time. It's always Mario, because Mario just has that consistent quality. I don't think you can say any mainline game in the Mario series is bad. And when people, complain about, Super Mario Sunshine and things like that, oh, okay, I get it. But for Mario Sunshine is a weak game in the Mario series. But when you compare Mario Sunshine to any other platforms, it's not even really a comparison. The game still crushes most of them, probably 90% of them, if not 99% of them. So Mario is always my go-to answer when it comes to the favorite video game series of all time is the Super Mario series. And that's not even counting the spin-offs, which pretty much you can count Smash Brothers as a spin-off off of Mario. You can count obviously Mario Kart, which these are some of my favorite games of all time. So yeah, Mario is the easy answer. Sorry, Link. Sorry, Zelda. Sorry, Samus and Ridley and Mother Brain and all you guys. But the answer is Mario and Friends, the Mushroom Kingdom. Super Mario series. Favorite series of all time for me personally. Who's my favorite developer? If you're asking developer as in a standalone person, or you're asking like developer as the whole studio, for the studio thing, I have to go within Nintendo, obviously. I know so much fanboy in me. I have to say EPD. Nintendo EPD, which were formerly EAD. EAD Tokyo, EAD Kyoto, whatever. They all got together and they made Nintendo EPD. That is my favorite developer, hands down. These guys worked on Wii Sports Resort, Legend of Zelda games, Mario games. You name it, they've worked on it. They've done, almost everything that you love about Nintendo. They've had a hand in Animal Crossing. The recently released crazy new IP Splatoon, that was them also. So that's hands down my favorite developer. But if you're asking developer as in the standalone person, I'm not gonna choose Miyamoto because that's like cheating, and I'm not gonna choose Onuma because pretty much he only makes Zelda games, right? So for me personally, I have to go with Yoshiaki Koizumi because that guy is just talented all around. And if you don't know who that is, he's basically the guy. You know what I mean? He's the guy at Nintendo, the guy that people aren't really familiar with his name, but eventually they will be, especially now, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's like the general manager of EPD. So look, just to give you an idea, this guy has worked on Zelda games, this guy has worked on 3D World, the Galaxy games, that was him. Like, this guy is just talented, and yeah, to me, he's my favorite. If you're gonna just say standalone developer, that's the guy that I would put behind any series, and I would be like, you know what, I could walk away now because it's gonna be fine because he's working on it. So yeah, favorite development studio is basically EPD, and favorite developer Yoshiaki Koizumi. I would say I fell in love with gaming during the Super Nintendo generation. I became a fanatic though during the N64 generation, and I'm gonna explain it now. See, because I loved games during the Super Nintendo generation, but to basically explain it best is like I used to get EGM, Game Pro, Tips and Tricks, Nintendo Power. And in those magazines, I remember during the Super Nintendo generation, I was young and all. I would scroll, look at the pretty pictures, like, of the games I cared about, and then basically just throw the magazine, like, yeah, whatever. Then in the Super Nintendo generation, eventually I started actually reading the articles of the games I cared about. But by the time the 64 generation came around, I was full-blown fanatic. Like the Super Nintendo start of the N64, I was full-blown fanatic. I was getting my Tips and Tricks, EGM, Game Pro, Nintendo Powers, and reading them front to back. I didn't care whether I cared about the game or not. I just wanted to, know everything, learn everything I could, just read about video games, because I just fell in love with video games, you know what I mean? And I would read those magazines front to back, and then the whole internet came around and things like that, and in school you had your library, or you had your public library, and you would only get like a certain amount of time to be on the internet. And I remember I started going to the library, right, because I didn't have no internet at home, and since I only had a little bit of time, I would just go on, at the time I think it was IGN 64, and I would just go and I would just print out full articles, right? On any website I could find that was video game related, I would print out full articles and things like that, so that when I go home, right, I would have something to read, and I would do the same thing the next day, basically. And I would print out full articles so I could, so basically, instead of spending my time actually reading the things on the computer, I was printing stuff out to take it with me. Like, that's when I knew it became like, just like all consuming for me. It was just absolutely crazy. Then I remember joining the official Nintendo forums, I think it was called like Inside or something like that, and talking to actual people who loved games as much as I loved games at the time. And that pretty much put me to where I am right now. Like, it just never stopped since, it was just something that became just a part of my DNA to, read about games, learn about games, want to know more than just, I picked up the game, I played it, that's it. But wanted to know who was behind the game and things like that. That was all pretty much during the end of the Super Nintendo and the beginning of the 64, where it became all consuming. And I would say I became a fanatic. I went from loving games to being fanatical about them. You know what? I was thinking about this question and really trying to pinpoint an exact moment. But I'm going to have to just say my favorite gaming memories, I'm going to be honest, like I've had so many, from NES that I can remember being really little to Super Nintendo 64, just going, to where we are now. I've had a lot of great memories this generation, things that I'll remember from this generation. But my favorite, I have to say, it was during the Nintendo 64. It was playing, the AKI wrestling games, and playing GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, and playing, it was so many local multiplayer games at the time, and playing those with friends at the time. Those were pretty much my favorite game memories. I still remember, playing in the complex, GoldenEye, and or playing paintball mode or big head mode in GoldenEye. I still remember all those memories, or creating my wrestler and pinning them against my friends' wrestlers and things like that, and taking my memory card with my, wrestlers on it, and taking it to a friend's house, putting my wrestlers in there. Like, it was just so much. I guess it was because it was such a actual real social thing, not just like internet. You don't see nobody. So it was actually local, and it's funny me saying that now, because you think about it, Nintendo's always with this local thing, like, making, they're trying to keep local, multiplayer around. And you know what, if there's a kid who's having the same memories right now, building the memories that will be like the same memories that I have now for themselves in the future with, probably Mario Kart 8 or games on other systems or indie games and things like that, I think that's where, you know, local multiplayer is super important. But that's not the question. The question is, you know, my favorite memory, and it was that. It was playing locally with my friends, being able to, you know, push them or have them like hit me in the arm when I beat them. It's just that, you know, that local experience, that real life, that thing that just can't be really captured exactly the same, you know, through the internet. So yeah, local multiplayer on N64, favorite video game memories, I would have to say. But you never know, it might change if you ask me tomorrow. You know, I have so many great fond memories of video games, but I would have to say local multiplayer, you know, those games on N64, that was like the best. Extreme G, F-Zero X, you know, Rush, Cruising USA, so many good games, so many good games. What I'm currently most excited about happening in the industry, I mean, come on. I think the only answer you can really give is VR. No, I'm just playing. Look, it's not even NX. To me, the most exciting thing happening in the industry is that the whole industry now, like at first, like a couple years ago, I was thinking it was only Nintendo, right? But now everybody's trying to, like, you know, switch it up. Like you got PlayStation talking about PlayStation 4.5 and you know, they're doing VR and things like that. So they're trying to do different things. And well, a lot of them are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to push VR, but you know, it's still different from what the norm is. And then you have Nintendo, which is like the NX. Yeah, cool, it's coming out, and I'm excited for it. But it's everything they're doing behind the scenes. Like I just said, you know, my favorite developer was EAD, but their name now is EPD. They've changed a lot, you know, behind the scenes. So I just want to see what happens, you know, with that. I just want to see when the NX come out, what exactly is it that Nintendo has ready to release? What things do they have, like, you know, like Miiverse and My Nintendo, things like all of that stuff is what's exciting to me right now in the world of gaming, because we're in this crazy period where there's so much change happening. So I really want to see how, you know, Nintendo adapts to it, and that's because, you know, I'm a fan of Nintendo, and they always, you know, do the craziest things, and when they're counted out, they somehow manage to, you know, come back with a knockout blow. And it's like, look, see, you should never count out Nintendo. So I'm looking forward to see exactly what all of the restriction that was happening behind the scenes during Iwata's time, you know what I mean, and now with, you know, Koizumi basically, why did I say Koizumi? Kimishima, you know, basically taking, you know, control of everything. So I'm looking forward to see what happens with Nintendo, and really just the future of games, the way they're distributed, the way they're distributed, the way we receive them and things like that. That's pretty much the most exciting thing happening in gaming. And it's exciting because it's scary. Like a lot of it scares me. Like it's like, this is not my gaming world, and I'm like the old man yelling at the cloud, like I don't want this to change, and I don't want that to change, and I want this to stay the same. So that's why it's like the most exciting, because things that are scary is sometimes you have to wonder, am I afraid of it, or is it like, you know, exciting fear? Like, you know, it's that kind of thing. Things that pretty much you're like, you know, oh man, I don't know if it changed, but it could turn out to be something great. It could turn out to be something way better than, you know, we ever thought. You know, they can probably leave the old gaming world behind and create a whole new better one. I don't think that's what's actually happening, because I mean, you look at a lot of the things that are going on, but you know, just the change within the industry, that's the most exciting thing happening right now. And mostly on the Nintendo side for me personally, but just as a whole, there's a lot of change happening right now, and this, you know, that's really exciting. I want to see gaming alive in the next 10 years. And by alive, I don't mean like a shell of itself, which is starting to feel like that now. You just keep seeing like developers just getting ticked off. Like, it just, I just want to see gaming alive and thrive, and I want to see indie developers making money like AAA developers. I want to see, which it happens sometimes, but I want to see more Minecrafts and more, you know, just games that, you know, blow up. Like I guess Undertale blew up recently, and Rocket League and things like that. I want to see, you know, more of that. But in the next 10 years, I hope we can still go to a store and buy a game and actually own our game still in 10 years. I hope it's not all digital stores. And I hope the way we play games changes. Like it changed when we got an analog stick. Like it changed when motion control started. And I use huge quotes with this, infecting all of gaming. You know, you got phones and motion controls. You got PlayStation controllers that have motion controls, whether they use them or not, doesn't matter. It has them all. And you have, you know, Wii U gamepads with screens and motion controls. So I you know, I'm looking forward to see how the way we play games change within the next 10 years. And my whole thing is that I hope it actually does change in the next 10 years. But where I see gaming in the next 10 years, man, it's hard to tell with all of this, you know, all of this change happening right now. But I think in the next 10 years, things will settle. and then, you know, you will have a clear picture of what the you know, the gaming landscape is going to be like within the next 10 years. I think within the next 3 to 4 years, things will settle down, and I think Nintendo would be, you know, the Nintendo that we're gonna get to know. And I make it sound like Nintendo's gonna change completely, but just, you know, they are doing changes. So I think in the next 2 to 3 years, you'll see like, okay, this is all the changes done complete. This is the Nintendo that we have today, you know, in 2018 or whatever. And maybe it'll be easier to paint the picture of the next 10 years, but really, I mean, I just hope games are still around. I hope we don't go through like I see a lot of gamers saying, oh, I want a gaming crash to happen. It's like, why? Like, you know, I hope there's no crash. I hope games are still great. I hope games are more respected. And I hope, you know, just because I hope video game movies take off and video games become way more respected. Because I feel when comic book movies took off, comic books became way more respected, and being a nerd became a cool thing. Like now everybody's a nerd all of a sudden. But yeah, so it's not really an answer, or maybe kind of, you know, it's a hard question, but I just hope it's still around and better and different and still fun. You know what I mean? That's the most important thing. I don't want it to just be like, oh, games look so great and you're in this VR headset and you're floating around and yay. Like, no, see, that's not what, like, I don't know. I want games to still be games. I'm not saying don't have that. I want everything I like about gaming to still be around in some shape or form. Like if you're an old school guy, I hope that there's a place for you to go and have, you know, that old school itch scratched. And if you want to be the guy, you know, in virtual worlds, I hope you have that too. I honestly do hope that takes off, and it's not like, hey, look, they're gonna do virtual reality, it didn't work again. Because how many times has the industry tried? You know what I mean? So I hope it takes off, and I just hope gaming grows and it's just a better environment. And you know what? I hope in the next, you know, I hope in the next 10 years, gamers would be more respectful of each other and what consoles they play. Because I mean, even I'm guilty of, you know, talking trash, but it's like, I don't know, me personally, I don't care as much as people actually think about like the console war stuff. Like I don't really care what you play. I just hope that it just stops with the whole, you know what? I hope in the next 10 years, Nintendo isn't treated like if they're a disease, and they're respected for the things that they have done, the things that they continue to achieve within the industry, and the things that they continue to bring to the industry. Yeah, long answer, but you know, I have high expectations for the future. Let's just say that. I'm not going to look at it bleak and say it's going to be the worst thing ever, because a lot of things, in my opinion, point to that. You know, I'm a hope for the best, and I'm a hope for a resurgence of Nintendo greatness and all of that goodness. I mean, I think I would stop playing video games if my hands got chopped off. And even then, VR might take off where I won't even need those, so I can still play. Look, honestly, I don't think I will ever stop playing video games, because video games, like, I didn't come into a world where video games didn't exist. Yeah, video games was super popular, and I pretty much came into the world when it was right, you know, the NES and everything was just blowing up and things like that. You know, so video games to me is the same, like, for a person who's probably like right now, I don't know, 60. You know, they see video games as that thing. You know, like they saw when it was coming. They probably thought, oh, it's a fad and things like that. I never got to live through, oh, it's video games a fad and things. You heard it all the time, but it was so already embedded into my entertainment in life. Like you know, you can go outside and play basketball, you can go play football, you can, you know, play some baseball. All those things I could do and I did do when I was young, but also along those things, it was like you also had video games. So you would play basketball for 5 hours, and then you would go into the house with your friends all sweaty and then start playing Street Fighter 2. Like, you know, video games are always there. So I can't see myself stop. That's like asking me like, oh, will you ever stop listening to music? I highly doubt it. Do you think you'll ever stop watching movies? It's almost certain that I won't. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with games. I put games right there. Like, I don't separate. Hell, I put games higher than I put music. Like, you know, in my category of entertainment, I will play a game way before I'd be like, oh yeah, let me, you know, listen to music, because, you know, I just, you know, want to pass the time. Like, I would listen to music and play a game before I would just be like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna pick music over a video game right now. I mean, sometimes I do, but it's usually, you know, games is usually the way to escape. It's video games for me, you know. So I don't think I could ever stop playing video games unless something stopped me physically from playing video games. You know what I mean? Like, I became mentally, you know, just not there anymore. I can't play because I don't know. And maybe even then they'll be like, you know what? He lost all his memory, but somehow, some way, he still remembers how to get every single star in Mario Galaxy. Like, you know, I would be that guy, like in an old people's home. Like, yep, he's gone. Like, there's nobody there. That's a potato. But somehow you put a controller in his hand and he just schools everybody in here. I mean, granted, they're all like 90 years old, but you get the point. I would still probably, you know, have that within me. Like, it's almost like it's not even something that my mind does. It's something that my mind, heart, body, and soul all does. So if you take away my mind, I could still game. I don't know, man. Seriously though, I don't see myself stopping to play video games. Like, why? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me why I would ever stop playing video games unless they went away completely. And even then, I own a lot of games. See, that's a good part of not being, you know, digital only. So I can still play a whole bunch of old great games. You know, so yeah, I don't think I'll ever stop playing video games. So I just want to say thanks, Digital Green Tea, for having me on this first edition of your interview series. And anytime you want to have me back, if you got more questions, I will gladly do it. You always, you know, help me out with my channel, and you know, it feels like so right now to be doing this for you and helping out your channel, because you know, it's a great channel that I think deserves way more views. You do, I mean, probably the best unboxings on the internet and things like that. So, you know, it's just cool to finally be able to give back, seeing as you know, helped me out a lot throughout the years. And for the people listening who don't know, yes, Digital Green Tea has helped out AGL and a lot of your other favorite YouTubers, you know, on YouTube. So I just want to say thanks, Digital Green Tea. Keep doing what you're doing. And yeah, until the next time, thanks for having me. Peace.